All right, everyone. Yesterday in the late evening, the North Korean press apparently reported that Kim Jong-un was not only willing to invite Trump to Pyongyang for a meeting, but also might come to the United States. This would be history making. You know, what we saw with the Korean summit so far already made history. We've got at least a verbal promise of the return of power remains. I think that's when Trump talks about things moving speedily. Returning the remains of prisoners of war is probably the first step, because that's a big sticking point. The fact that North Korea won't give up the remains to people, in some cases their relatives still alive, like their kids, their significant others still alive, their parents in a very small number of cases, of course. If you fought in the Korean War and died, back in the 50s, that would make your parents quite old, so very few of them left, but some thousands of people directly impacted by the lack of having actual remains. They don't have a memorial, but they don't have a gravesite. They don't have an urn or a tombstone or anything to go visit, sort of. And that's important. The U.S. military is certainly on board with getting those remains back. That's one of the biggest concessions he got, actually. I didn't even know that originally. I didn't mention in my video. Plus, China has removed some of its missile sites from the Spratlys in something that could apparently be loosely connected. Probably it's, hey, now that it was agreed upon beforehand, and what we're seeing is just the prior agreed upon stuff happening. Really, and it'll be fairly rapid if that's the case, because it was already in planning for some time pre-implementation. If that's the case, then it makes sense that these things would happen quickly, which is why Trump would come out and guarantee, oh yeah, there's no longer a nuclear threat from North Korea. That's a masterstroke, and I'll tell you why. The Democrats, in proclaiming that there are countermanding what they said for decades, which was they're not a threat to us. Maybe to South Korea, maybe to Japan, they can't hit us with their weapons. By the way, you are right. So there isn't a nuclear threat from North Korea. They can't even hit us with their weapons. Look, the furthest that they can feasibly send their longest range missiles are into areas of the very, very coast of the west coast of the U.S. They can't hit the vast majority of the United States. They can hit Hawaii and Guam and Alaska as far as targeting capabilities, maybe less ably, but they can't really do anything else. Democrats pointed this out. Oh, those Republicans, they're just warmongering. They want to start a nuclear war. You can remember, less than a year ago, that's what they were saying about Trump. They're not a threat to us, only to like the Koreans and stuff. Maintain the status quo. I see people like Ben Shapiro coming out. Oh, all these people that are giving him credit for this and applauding him so loudly would have crucified Obama for the same thing. No, bullshit. Some of us are actually consistent, unlike Ben Shapiro. Like on the Cuba deal, I came out and congratulated Obama for that. I thought it was a great idea to open up to Cuba, and Cuba was never a nuclear state. Cuba was never a threat to anybody. We just kept them in a perpetual embargo state. I was willing to give Obama credit for that, something admittedly a lot of people on the right weren't willing to do, because it's like, who fucking cares? But I'm also going to applaud Trump on a much more important sort of situation. North Korea does have hydrogen weapons and atomic weapons. It is capable of posing a threat to nations that are in proximity, if not to the U.S., but Trump's statement isn't wrong. They're not a nuclear threat because they never were. So the Democrats right now are literally, they jumped on him for saying this. And he's caused them to invert what they've been saying for a decade, which is North Korea is not a threat to us. Keep up the status quo and just use sanctions. If they're such a big threat, then why didn't you pressure Obama to do more on North Korea then, Democrats? See, Trump's got you all scrambled. Trump can literally take any side on any issue, and he knows that there's a 99% chance that every liberal pundit and propaganda outlet and every politician that doesn't like him will immediately switch to the opposite view. He's got you doing this over and over again. He's got you like backing surveillance, the surveillance state and Big Brother. He's got you backing groups that spy on you constantly and have headhunted after journalists before. Do you even understand how dumb you sound? If Trump travels to Pyongyang, it'll be a first. If Kim travels to the U.S., it'll be a first. It won't have happened, look, since the creation of the North Korean state out of the ashes of what was once just Korea, because of the fighting there. No North Korean leader has visited U.S. soil, and no U.S. leader has ever stepped foot in North Korea. All of the meetings involving the highest-ranking individuals have always been held either at the DMZ or in some neutral zone, like a Singapore, like the summit just happened. That's where they've happened. Kim Jong-un's dad and grandpa never visited D.C. Kim Jong-un's never been to D.C. He's been out of the country. He's been in China, Singapore. I believe he's gone to Russia. It's like Assad will travel to North Korea. I don't think he has to worry about getting thrown in the rock quarry. You know, it'd be really surreal. Bashar al-Assad goes there and he just gets a little bit too high one night and stumbles through the halls and accidentally desecrates a portrait of dear leader. And then the North Koreans say, fuck the Syrian people. And they throw Bashar al-Assad into the salt mines for 5 years or something. And that'd be really funny. And, you know, Syria couldn't do anything about it. And it'd be really surreal. Maybe that's a way of capture. Maybe the U.S. has already leaned on the North Koreans to detain him when he goes there. Wouldn't that be funny? I don't think that's actually going to happen. But yeah, this would be historic. The importance can't be overstated. There's finally reason to be optimistic about a region of the world that for a long time had even those of us who generally are eternal optimists when it comes to the survival of the human race in that region, that made us into pessimists, really. Like, my general comprehension of it was that eventually, unless something internal happened, there would probably be a war in the Korean Peninsula. It would require war, and that with the development of the H-bomb, the chance of that in any given time, while still small, was an order of magnitude more than when they were just an atomic power. That's definitely the case. Now there's reason to be cautiously optimistic. We've got a promise of denuclearization. What are the behind-the-scenes terms that Trump and Kim agreed on? Who knows? We can't necessarily know. That's like very under wraps. We know it involves power remains. We know it involves the South Korean war games. The war exercises were planned for a year in advance. It doesn't matter if Trump says, well, we're not going to do them. By then, maybe North Korea is denuclearized and we don't need such drills. If North Korea doesn't have any nuclear weapons, look, we can't just haul off and preemptively attack North Korea if they've upheld their end of the bargain. Kim Jong-un knows this, and the Chinese have guaranteed it, I'm sure. Behind the scenes, and China is intrinsically involved with this. Trump leaned on them, said, hey, all this other stuff can be just bluster, or it can be very real. It really depends on whether you cooperate with us and help us to prevent tragedy in the Korean Peninsula, because otherwise we're probably just going to invade. And then maybe some of you get killed too, so think about that real fucking long and hard. And these Democrats, they're hoping that it fails. They're like, you can tell, Bill Maher is praying for a recession. He's also praying that Kim Jong-un randomly presses the little red button and, immolates 1 million South Koreans, I guess. I mean, you look insane. You look like fucking Bush. Don't you know who you sound like? You sound like the Mumurka sort of, hyper-patriotic bullshit after 9/11. Oh, we're going to kill everyone. Let's gas everyone. Deploy the nukes. We must burn some cities. That's a lot of people said that, like, after 9. I can remember it because I was, old enough at the time. I was in fucking middle school. I was old enough to see what people were seeing and how they felt and the panic and the paranoia and all the hate, this and that, the freedom fries, and France won't join us in burning, this city to the ground, so we're going to take this $1,000 bottle of wine and dump it down into the grate here. And it was really surreal and it was just so dumb. And it's like at the time, I'm looking at it, I'm like, what the fuck is going on? This doesn't seem like the same United States I've been in for the rest of my life. Things were so peaceful and normal. What happened? And it's like, you've almost got that going on now with all of these people on the left are just so filled with paranoia and hatred. And the vitriol is just so poisonous and venomous, they don't even know that they've begun to resemble Bush Republicans. And we got proof of this, like they're talking about, oh, Herbert Walker, oh, I never thought I'd say this, but I miss the Bushes. Are you fucking nuts? No, when Trump kills 500,000 people in some desert nation, then you can wish for the Bushes back. When Trump manages the destruction of an entire city a la Katrina and does nothing for 3 days, then you can talk about it. No, then you can talk about how you wish for the Bushes back. When you stop being the pro-Big Brother, pro-surveillance, pro-censorship idiots of the country, the moral busybodies like the Bushites were, then you can complain about Trump. With regards to the summit, you should be hoping that it goes off well. You should be hoping they meet again, that it's successful and that there's denuclearization and peace, a peace treaty signed. Korea maybe reunifies at some point. I saw a news report the other day. I can't remember which outlet, and I don't give a fuck. They're like, oh, it would cost $1 trillion to reunify Korea. Yeah, there are plenty of possibilities if that happens, but it would be so expensive and time-consuming and blah, blah. You want it to fail. Will you just fucking admit it, that you hate Trump so badly that you hope that there's a nuclear war? Can you be honest? Can you be like Bill Maher? Even Bill Maher won't go far enough to say that. Even he won't admit to that, because he'd be canned the next day. But be honest. I mean, come on. Say what you really feel, pal. That's about all. Peace out.